Hey, Shalom Akim, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Akakatas Barakatam, the honors and salutations to the elders and apostles, Mr. Well. It's been a measure, DC Camp, another lesson for the hopeful elect us by the drummer, in Virginia, man, the so called governing body in Richmond, so called state senators, they passed the gun control bill, the weapons ban and all that stuff, So the governor already signed it, you know, and they're all happy and smiling. But at the end of the day, they're just opening up a can of worms because folks can debate as per the legality of the laws being drafted, being passed, legislation being approved, signed by the governor, and for it to go into effect on July 1st, 2026. So that's one thing that a lot of these legislators always seem to forget that passing of legislation doesn't really change the course of a person's nature. The Lord has already made it clear that the blessing of Esau is always going to be the sword, and from time immemorial, that sword has never departed out of the hand of Esau. And that legislation they've been trying so hard to pass across the whole nation, the whole country of America, is just not going to change that. Only the Lord can take the sword out of the hand of Esau. And they're going to try, these legislators, from the states, they're basically opening the back door for the federal government to crack down on the people of their states. So you're going to have pressure from below and pressure from above. The state government is going to work hand in hand with the federal government to come against the people of their states, to suppress the exercise of their constitutional rights. You know, they're going to come against those that hold on to the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth, and the Fifth, and the Sixth, and those that also believe in the 13th and the 14th. And then they're going to have to talk about those that believe in the 25th too. So the United States Constitution basically has to be shredded, and that's going to create a bad reaction. So the book of Genesis chapter 27 tells us, so prophecy as per what the Lord, Amashaki Abishai, who was also Isaac back then, had blessed Esau with. So Genesis chapter 27 verse 39 says, after you know what, I'll start with 38, Genesis 27:38. And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling place shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven above. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Yeah, so that's one thing a lot of these legislatures, this so-called senators and congressmen never realize, man, that they basically trying to pull the sword out of the hands of these Edomites, man. So they're gonna have to have a physical and violent confrontation when they want to go full steam against the people, because it's gonna get ugly and violent, and yeah, it's gonna be a force, to be reckoned with. It's gonna be a clash. Yeah, because the vibration that the Most High put upon America is not that of peace, you know. And when you look at the new, what do you call it? That's a that's a dime. Yeah, that's a dime. That's yeah, that's a dime. What do you call it? The new. So like, bear with me. The new dime. Yeah, the U.S. Mint reveals it is removing the olive branch from the dime. All right, so there's a dime to commemorate the 250-year anniversary of the United States. So the eagle doesn't have the olive branch on the coin. All it have in its talons, arrows. You know, so that's basically going back to the revolutionary times, man. So yeah, it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be ugly when the state comes against the people and the federal government comes against the people. It's something we've been looking forward to happening. They cannot avoid that clash. You know, so the book of Second Ezra, chapter 15 and 14 says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Yeah, so it's going to be a brutal interaction. The decimation or decimating of public infrastructure is going to be horrible. When that rivalry begins to simmer and bubble and spill over the pots, it's going to be ugly. So I'll play this clip.
Under the legislation on its way to Governor Abigail Spanberger's desk, the state would ban the sale, manufacture, and import of a series of guns classified as assault weapons and magazines that hold more than 15 rounds after July 1st, 2026. If you already bought or own those before that date, you would still be allowed to keep them.
We are simply saying if you had it, you can keep it, but going forward, you simply cannot purchase them.
The bill.
Well, that's what Obama said about people with health care and the doctors, man. So what does he have to say now? So that's the game plan of the elites. They have to disarm the American population, They have to do that, and it's part of the journey. You know that we have to pass through as per our salvation is at hand, man. You have to pass through the clashes, of these people coming against the government. And you just have to realize, man, we don't have that type of luxury to be stressing about about Esau's drama. That's the reason why when you read the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 3, it says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Yahweh to the pulling down of strongholds." Okay, yeah. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Yahweh to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of Yahweh and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach Yahushai. Yeah, so that's what we deal with, man. We deal in the knowledge of the Lord, and we debunk all types of falsehoods. Basically, we uprooting the falsehoods that have taken root in the minds of the people. We're basically the anti-weeding agents, man. You know, yeah, we're tearing down all these weeds and thorns in the minds of the people. In the minds of the Israelites, our people, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, even the heathen too. Because the truth is being spoken, and those that will hear, we hear. That's how it is. That's what this truth is about, man. Those that hear the truth, we hear the truth. It doesn't change nationality, man. The truth will be heard, whether by those that are going to be delivered or by those that cannot be delivered. Is that clear? All right. So I'll play more of the clip.
Sponsor, State Senator Saddam Salim, says the bill allows a few ways for owners to transfer those guns and magazines, including selling to licensed dealers or through inheritance from a direct family member. He says it also has exemptions for groups like law enforcement and security at federal facilities.
And the overall goal of this bill is to ensure that we have less weapons of war on the streets.
Salim says the mass shooting at Virginia Tech happened when he was in high school, and many more have happened since.
Where instead of trying to do something, we just continue to say, we're going to think about you and we're going to pray for you. So we have not seen a lot of that being done.
Focus on criminals in our community and not on weapons owned by law-abiding citizens.
But Republicans like State Senator Mark Obenshain say this law will do nothing to prevent mass shootings, as the criminals who commit them would ignore the law in the first place.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or Democrat in those positions, it's still going down the drain because both parties are in the pockets of the E-class. So don't expect the so-called Republicans to champion the rights of the people. They're there to ride both sides. They are both gatekeepers. So it's irrelevant, to think of them as having your interest at heart. So you don't think about skin color, the background and all the party political affiliation. It's just a smoke screen, because the the prophecies of the Lord have to take place, and you just have to pray that you don't get caught up in this drama, this drama of democracy, you know. And then when they talk about redistricting, gerrymandering, and all that stuff, it doesn't make the matter any better because it's still the same old system of control over the people.
And the focus should be on mental health.
Really, it's nothing more than moving around the deck chairs on a cruise ship. It is going to do nothing.
Yeah, so mental health is basically a oxymoron, man. You can't have, how can you have a proper mental health stability when you don't have the First Amendment, to support your position? When you get attacked for speaking the truth, how can that be support for mental health? So, the letting you know ahead of time, man, that is irrelevant. Your healthcare is irrelevant because the corporations, the pharmaceutical industry, and these insurance companies, man, they've cornered the market. It's like a monopoly. It's like an oligopoly, man. They only benefits the people at the top and use the people as cash cows. So that's the drama. They use the people as cash cow so they could have access to the government coffers. That's all it is. People are just vehicles to move money back and forth. That's how it is. That's what the corporations want. People are being held hostage by the system, by the private, by the private corporation and by the government. So that tells you that the system has been captured. That the whole idea of democracy is in the graveyard. And the undertakers are the ones that are the ones administering the service. They're the ones in charge of nutrition, in charge of transportation, in charge of education, finances. So that's just Esau, man. He has assumed the position of the undertaker in the lives of the people. So what do you expect? Nothing but death. You have all these GMO foods, that's affecting the lives of children. It's disrupting their development. You know, and then they're being attacked psychologically with all these gender bending ideologies.
To affect violent behavior like the murders that took place down in Chaco Bottom a couple of weeks ago.
He adds the bill language also snaps up firearms that he wouldn't consider weapons of war.
They're weapons that have a characteristic like a pistol grip that some shotguns have that are used in hunting, collapsible or folding stocks.
Republicans have added the ban violates the Second Amendment and point to a ruling in D.C. this month that said a similar magazine ban was unconstitutional. Salim says his bill is based on the 1994 federal ban, but adds if there are legal challenges.
We have an AG who's been great, who has said he's going to continue to fight for this alongside me, so I think we're in a good place.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they're gonna have to deal with the wrath of the Lord. That's just one thing, so they can pass all the legislation they want. They could confiscate as many weapons as they desire to, but they have to realize at the end of the day, man, they're going to have to face, a greater power. That's one thing, they're going to have to deal with. So, Job chapter 18 and 14. His confidence shall be rooted out of his tabernacle, and it shall bring him to the king of terrors. So, they're going to have to encounter the Lord Amashaki Avashai when he brings his destruction upon the face of the earth. That's a problem they cannot fight against. That's one thing that they want to address, but they don't have the power. They don't have the power, you know, to accomplish that because the Lord never allowed them to have that luxury. You know, that's the issue. That's that's pissing them off the most. Revelation chapter 19, verse 11. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. That's the Lord of Mashaki Abishai. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. Yep. So you can imagine what the Lord of Mashaki Abishai is going to do. Alright, verse 12 says, his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but himself. Verse 13, and he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. Okay, so that's a situation that this legislators will have to deal with, very, very soon, man. So that's the point of this lesson, man. You know, the Lord has to approach them very soon, man, with all his wrath and tear down this system of falsehood, because the laws that are being passed is not uplifting the minds of the people. It's decimating their psyche. It's destroying the minds of the people. And the Lord Hamashach Yahushai has to put an end to that. So that's the conclusion of this lesson. Abaratazar, you've been edified. And we keep up with more events. Shalom.